Hello and welcome to W.I.S.E. I'm Rosie Acosta. W.I.S.E. stands for Women Inspiring Success and Empowerment. This is a 10-part podcast series featuring interviews with successful, inspirational women in business, art, entertainment, and more. What have we inherited from our ancestors? I'm not talking about eye color or face shape or even money, but what morals, ethics, talents, beliefs, fears, traumas have previous generations passed on to us? Willingly or unwillingly, consciously or unconsciously. We as women are keepers of our own personal culture. But how can we choose what we pass on to the next generation? I want to pass on a love of music, a mind for social justice, but none of the unhealthy habits that may have been passed down to me. Is that even possible? Do we even have a choice? This week, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Tererai Trent, who knows firsthand the difficulties of breaking through generational trauma and the importance of passing down generational wisdom. Tererai was born in Zimbabwe and due to her gender and social class, was not allowed to attend school. She had 3 children by the age of 18 without a high school diploma. She was abused for wanting an education. However, Tererai would let nothing stop her or her pursuit for education. She taught herself how to read and write by stealing her brother's books. In the late 90s, she moved to Oklahoma with her family and worked hard to not only earn a bachelor's degree, but a master's and a PhD. In May 2011, Oprah Winfrey donated $1.5 million so Tererai could build a school in her old village in Zimbabwe, breaking the institutional binds that kept women like her without an education for generations. Here's my inspirational conversation with Tererai Trent. I just want to start by saying, first of all, I am so honored and privileged to have you on the podcast. I am so grateful for you and for just all of the wisdom that you bring to the world, for Awakened Woman and the series and the circles that you do, for everything that you have created. You and I had the opportunity to meet in person a couple of years ago. We both spoke at the Hivory event with Marie Forleo. Yeah. And it was such a beautiful experience for me to just be able to see you speak live.
The honor is mine. Thank you so much for this
Tererai.
invitation. Oh my goodness. I'm just so humbled. Thank you.
Well, part of the podcast is about women inspiring success and empowerment. And The Awakened Woman was such a inspirational piece of work for me in starting this project, because I felt what better story to empower women than to tell them the story of overcoming adversity.
There's always beauty when you create a platform for women to reclaim their own voices, because women, we all have our own voices, but somehow we have been silenced. And so we need giants like you, champions like you, who can create these platforms for women to begin to tell their own stories.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you for that. I would normally say no, but I'm going to honor that compliment. So thank you so much. I have I've got a handful of questions, and I'm hoping that we can get through some of these. And, one of the most important things that I find is that sense of empowerment that we have as women. I'm so curious where that comes from, because so many powerful women have had different stories, different paths in their lives. And I know that you have, and again, for the people that may not know Tererai's story, it's one of incredible triumph. And I am curious to hear your thoughts on what you think is the most important thing as women that we become aware of in order for us to become deeply empowered.
I always think that women need to, one, reclaim their voices, but also to be able to reflect on their past and confront their past, because that past comes with lots of wounding. I talk about the power of the baton that we need to change as women. We come into this world carrying what I call the soul wounds from past generations. And epigenetics tells us that many minorities who might have been marginalized, they tend to pass on those wounding to the next generation. And when I talk about it's a baton of this soul wounding that we pass on, I always go back to the story of my great-grandmother, whom I always visualized through the stories that had been passed on from my grandmother, my mother, that she was born into this race where she's running, and she's running a race that she never defined. And I am calling that the relay, and she's holding a baton, is the baton of poverty, the baton of early marriage, the baton of a colonial system that never respected her and valued her as a woman. And she's running with this baton, and she hands it over to my grandmother. My grandmother grabs this baton of illiteracy, the baton of poverty, the baton of oppression, and she runs with this baton. She hands it over to my mother. My mother grabs this baton and she runs and she hands it over to me. But my grandmother tells the story that in the passing of this baton, there is also the passing of empowerment, the passing of wisdom. So we are not victims, we are part of the solution. But it's how then we begin to say of this baton that I'm running with, what wisdom have been passed on to me, and how do I redefine and reshift this baton so I don't have to pass it on to my baby girls or my kids in the next generation. That's the wisdom that women have.
Oh, yeah. For women to be able to recognize what the baton is for them, because it can be different for so many people, but what does it take for, in your experience, you've worked with so many women, what does it take for a woman to realize that they have the baton of limitation? How do they recognize this?
The baton of fear. I think it's important for women to come to a place where they have to reflect on their past and reflect on their mothers and their grandmothers and say, what are some of the patterns that I am experiencing that I have also seen in my grandmother and in my mother? Fear. In my case, I could see my mother had so much fear, and yet she was this strong woman with so much wisdom and certainty, because she wasn't as educated. So I could see all that. And then I had to ask myself, as I reflect on these things, and I've seen many women that I've worked with to say, reflect on your past, reflect on your soul wounding, and define how you want to be defined yourself, how you want to live the best of your life. So, because if you fail to confront your fears, your self-judgment, it will be very difficult for you to think about this dream that's in front of you. And also, when you fail to confront those soul wounding, those limitations, remember, you are also passing on that fear and that silencing to your babies as well.
Oh, that is so deep. That is so deep. For you, what has been the biggest lesson in your life? What is the one thing that really allowed you to become awakened in to become awake to this wisdom, that this is not you, this is something that's being passed on? What has been the biggest lesson in your journey?
Mainly because I come from generations of storytellers, where we would sit around an open fire in the village back home in Africa and listen to these stories from my grandmother, stories from my mother, stories from these ancient women who would say to me, despite the poverty, despite the ugly circumstances, you are born with wisdom. And so it's important for women, or for many of your listeners, to realize that we need to surround ourselves with what I call the wisdom carriers, the wisdom whisperers, the mentors who can allow us to fulfill our own dreams. And I think it's important. And I always say, come home to yourself, because we live in a world of uncertainty. We live in a world that demands so much of us. But when we come home to ourselves, then we begin to realize the life that we want for ourselves, not the life that the society is expecting out of us.
How do you think that as women, we are doing enough to empower each other to feel that? I feel like I agree with what you're saying. I grew up in the same, in Hispanic cultures, it's the same. There's a lot of storytelling. There's a lot of that wisdom that is passed down. I feel like in the current situation we're in, a lot of women are very driven by success and working, and maybe not getting enough of that empowerment, enough of that circle of support. So what do you think that that's true? And if you do, what do you think we can do about it?
Going back to the wisdom that I have learned from my own ancestors, it's our collective as women, this feminine energy that we hold. When we come together, we can break through, we can achieve more, we can rise together. And I've also learned that, as much as we live in societies that we have to be strong, we have to achieve that, we have to be competitive. But when we come together, galvanize that feminine energy as women, we can all thrive together. I always talk about something that my mother would always say, that we here on earth, we are climbing an invisible ladder. The ladder has its own rungs. So they are women who are at the bottom of the rung of that ladder, and there are those women who are at the top of that rung, of that ladder. The women who are at the top, they have this moral obligation to look down and lift up the sisters who are at the bottom. That's what's going to make us more successful as women, is that collective energy, and we have to recognize that. And I remember when my mother, I was born in a country known as Rhodesia, and today it's Zimbabwe. So I was born in a rural community, very poor, no running water, nothing at all. Our houses were built out of mud. But I wanted an education so badly. But because we had this colonial system that denied many of us education, and the collusion of that colonial system with the patriarchal system, it was a bombshell for women. that meant the marginalization of women, the oppression of women. And I wanted an education. I wanted to break this baton that I knew I was running with. And so I met a woman who said to me, "What are your dreams?" And I had never had anybody ask me that question. And I said, after some hesitation, "I want an education." And she said, "Write down your dreams. And your dreams are achievable if you believe in those dreams." So I ran to my mother, and my dreams were, I want to go to America. I want to have an undergraduate degree. I want to have a master's, and I want to have a PhD. And when I wrote down those dreams, my mother said, "I only see 4 personal dreams in your life. But let me remind you this, my daughter, your dreams will have greater meaning when they are tied to the betterment of your community, when they are tied to the betterment of others." And so I knew then that my mother was reminding me of that invisible ladder and how we need to make sure that we abide morally to that ladder. And I had to write down my number 5 dreams. When I'm done, I want to come and give back and improve the lives of women and girls in my community so they don't have to go through what I had gone through. And I come from a society or a culture where when a child is born, the female elders of the village, the librarians of our memories, the wisdom whisperers, they would surround that infant and snip out the umbilical cord or the birth cord and bury that piece deep down under the ground with the belief that when this child grows, wherever they go, the umbilical cord will always remind them of their birthplace. It will always remind them of the invisible ladder and its purpose. So I buried my 5 dreams, including that 5th dream, which I call the sacred dream. I am no Mother Teresa, no. But I know that, and I think my mother knew that, it's not only about our personal dreams in this life, neither is it about the education and the diplomas that we post on our walls, or is it about the success, the financial success that we have? But it is all about how we connect our education, how we connect our personal dreams to the greater good. That's what's going to make us successful as women.
Oh, I love that. I'm like, you can just continue because that is just music to my ears. It's so incredibly inspiring. And my thinking is always, what is the driving force behind being able to recognize that, to being awake to that? Because there are so many people that don't feel the fulfillment of life because they're not awake to that. I think it is so important to be able to stay connected to your roots, to know where you come from, to you know, not because you owe anything, but because that is where that is your essence. That's where your soul it grew from. That is where it sprouted from. And so I think it's really important for everyone, right?
That's the place of our wisdom. That's the place of our birthing into this world. And my mother and my grandmother would always talk about, we are born with 2 hungers in our lives. there is the little hunger. The little hunger that we have is mostly from those soul wounds, self-judgment, limiting ourselves from what it could be or what it can be. And it's always, the little hunger is always demanding us to have it now. It's demanding us to never be satisfied with what we have. But there is also the great hunger, the greatest of all hungers that we are born with, hunger to seek meaning in our lives. And so, going back to your question, where is this awakening coming from? And how can women get this awakening? By tapping into their great hunger, recognizing the little hungers that brings fear and anxiety, and saying, here is my great hunger. And by also asking the question, what breaks my heart? Because it is in those moments of our brokenness where we feel the yearning of our hearts, needing something beyond who we are at the present moment, we begin to find healing and redemption. And we begin to realize that we are here on earth for a purpose. And it's not only about me, it's not only about you. So finding that purpose, you find it by asking, what breaks my heart? And for me, what breaks my heart, or what broke my heart, was the fact that I was married when I was very young, exchanged for a cow. By the time I was 18, I was a mother of 4. One of the babies died as an infant because I failed to produce enough milk to feed that child. I was a child myself, and I knew I was on this pathway that generations of women before me had passed on, and I wanted to break that cycle. So it is in finding myself, in coming home to myself, in finding what breaks my heart, I was finding my own redemption and my own healing. So that's the awakening of women. So by asking, what breaks my heart? When I look into my life, when I look into my community, what is really breaking my heart?
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Is there something interfering with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? I know that the last couple of months for me and a lot of people I know, it has been such an emotional upheaval, up and down. This is coming from somebody who's been in and out of therapy for the last 15 years. BetterHelp will help assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can start communicating in under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line, it's not a self-help, it's a professional counseling service done straight online. There's a broad range of expertise available, which may not be locally available in many areas, especially with a lot of things being closed down right now. The service is available for clients worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your counselor. You'll get a timely and thoughtful response. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room, as with traditional therapy. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so that they make it easy for you and free to change counselors if you need. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit their website and read their testimonials that are posted daily. Visit betterhelp.com/wise. That's better, HELP, and join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. Today, they're offering our listeners for the WISE podcast 10% off of your first month if you visit betterhelp.com/wise. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/wise W.I.S.E, to get 10% off of your first month. So my workout schedule's been rather hectic lately, and I'm noticing it's starting to really wear me down. And even though I'm getting all my workouts in, practicing yoga nidra and meditation, and doing whatever I can to keep my stress levels low, I can still feel like I'm stressed. No one likes feeling stressed out, and even worse, how it can affect the people closest to you. But lately I've been doing something a little different, and it's been helping me feel great again. A friend of mine who recently recovered from an absolute burnout told me that it wasn't time off or more rest or a secret relaxation technique that saved him. This is where it gets really interesting. He said that all he did was add a mineral to his diet based upon his doctor's recommendation. I was hooked. So I asked him, of course, what mineral was it? And he told me that he was recommended a super dose of magnesium. You see, magnesium is the fourth most abundant mineral in the human body. Since the nutrient is responsible for 300 to 600 different biochemical reactions in the body, including metabolism, when your levels are low, you struggle with sleep, energy, metabolism, pain, and stress. You can get magnesium from certain foods like black beans, nuts, avocados, spinach, and more, but if you really want to make sure you get enough magnesium for what your body needs, I recommend using a supplement in addition to these foods. Now, before you go research magnesium supplements, know this. Most magnesium supplements fail to help you beat stress for two primary reasons. The first, they are synthetic, unnatural, and not recognized by your body. And two, they are not full spectrum, meaning they don't have all 7 forms that you need. So today I want to introduce you to the best magnesium supplement I've found. It's the most potent, complete, first full spectrum magnesium formula ever created. It's called Magnesium Breakthrough. Magnesium Breakthrough is a complete formula that includes naturally derived forms of all 7 forms of supplemental magnesium, and it doesn't contain any synthetic additives or preservatives. This is the most potent oral magnesium you will ever find, period. Many notice a sense of calm, relaxation, their nervous system and stress levels are soothed, and better sleep is often observed within the first week. If used daily and as instructed, most people use Magnesium Breakthrough in the morning, which is when I like to use it, to help them stay calm and resilient to deal with the day. And even within 3 to 5 weeks, most people experience a level of peace and serenity that they haven't felt in a very long time. I highly recommend trying Magnesium Breakthrough for at least 30 days to see how it will make a difference in your mood or stress levels. Today, you can get 10% off with a special W.I.S.E podcast coupon code when you visit biooptimizers.com/WISE and enter the code WISE10. That's BIOPTIMIZERS/WISE and use the promo code WISE10. And now back to our show. What strikes me the most about what you're saying is our ability to have that self-reflection. And I feel like a lot of the times when women specifically feel dissatisfied or disconnected to their life, they're not having that fulfillment is most of the time, in my experience, because of the lack of self-inquiry that's happening. They're not asking, it's not that they're not asking the right questions. They're just not asking any questions at all. People just sometimes expect things to come to them. And to a certain level, I do believe that the universe brings you the lessons that you need to learn, and it brings you the tools, and it provides the opportunities to do that self-inquiry. But I feel like there has to be that level of awareness that you need to do that work, that for you and your experience, you didn't have a choice but to thrive. You were just in a position where you were just so driven and so committed to breaking away and breaking out of what the norm was. And I, to me, because I feel like I experienced the same thing growing up in East LA during the LA riots, being in a gang riddled environment where there's drugs and alcohol, and everybody's part of the justice system, not in the good way. They're part of the opposite of the justice system. So for us, that's the route. That is the life that you are destined to live. And unless you make different choices, and sometimes making those choices aren't the easiest choice, but I feel like for me, and this is what I want to ask is leading up to the next question is, where does that come from? Like, where does that level of desire that you had, that you just knew it, was it because you were a mom, you were a mother, or because you just knew that this was not for you, that you wanted more, you wanted to educate yourself, you wanted to progress? Like, where does that come from?
You know, you talked about sometimes it's not easy for us to ask the difficult questions or the right questions. It is because we don't want to go there. Because by going there, we are exposing our vulnerability. But you know, Renee Brown talks about the beauty of vulnerability because it actually shows our own strength. And so in my teachings, I always ask women to confront their fears, their limitations, and to be vulnerable. And I learned that from my grandmother and my mother during those storytelling times where we would sit around that open fire, because it allowed me to see the story and to see the tears, to see the vulnerability from my grandmother as she would narrate the story. There was beauty, and there is beauty when we confront our pain and when we confront those difficult questions. Because as I write in The Awakened Woman, when we don't allow ourselves to go there, we are allowing silencing. And when we become silenced, we bottle these wounds within us because we don't want to go there. We can only heal from that which we are able to confront, because once we confront it, it loses its energy and it frees us. And that's why I always talk about the great hunger, because it liberates us. It enables us to ask the difficult question, what breaks my heart? It enables us to go back and confront our own past and to share these stories with our own children. There's a lot of silencing that happens in our families because we are afraid to go there. We are ashamed of it. I was also ashamed to talk about having 4 kids before I was 18. I would always think people would judge me, would judge my community, that how can they exchange you for a cow? But when I confronted that and I said, no child of mine is going to be exchanged for a cow in marriage. That's freedom. And my children, they know that, and that's freedom. And people would say, but it's our culture. And I always say, no, our culture is loving. Our culture is embracing. There's a difference between culture and customs. You know, here in the US or in the Western world, when you want to build a house, people say it's a custom built house. You have to customize your house. So the paying or the exchanging of women for money or exchange with a cow is just a custom that someone, a patriarchal society, our men said, well, we can gain cows if we marry this one. It's not culture, because culture is loving. Those grandmothers, they are dipped into our culture, so they become the librarians of our memories. They can share the stories. But I want to say to women, look into the customs that have shaped who you are and go back to your culture. That's your foundation, and that's building your wisdom.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I love that. I have just a couple more questions for you. The first, it's not the first one. I don't know how many I've asked you already, but it's with regard to success and what is your definition of success and what does success look like, and what do you think us as women should strive for when we're trying to achieve success?
You know, success, and I always talk about the secret to our success is when we connect our own personal goals and our own personal dreams to the greater good. That's what success. Our lives as women should never have a period at the end of this journey to what we are calling a success. But we should always thrive to leave a comma at the end of that journey so that others can pick it up. We are a sentence as we live this life. And so what is your sentence? Is it defined by that period? I have reached it. I am now successful. It's a journey. It's a journey, because we have to realize that we are the creators for others to thrive. And I always ask, can you be the fertile ground for others to thrive? Because Tererai as I am, I stand on the shoulders of many women and many individuals who looked right into my face and saw something that I wasn't seeing. So I stand on their shoulders. And so I have this moral obligation to allow others to stand on my shoulders. So with that fifth dream, the number 5, today, you know, we have a foundation. I have the Tererai Trent International Foundation, and building schools. I went back to Zimbabwe, and I was very fortunate that I got $1.5 million from Oprah Winfrey to rebuild schools and provide education and create platforms for women to thrive. I had no idea how I was going to fulfill that number 5 dream, because my mother, when she said, I only see 4, and I ended up writing my number 5 dream to go back and improve the lives of women. And I had no idea how I was going to fulfill that dream. But my mother was wise, because as I achieved my PhD, I could not find joy. I kept on thinking of that number 5 dream that was buried deep down in the ground back home in Africa. How on earth was I going to fulfill that 5th dream of giving back to my community? As though the universe is there to conspire for our success, I got this phone call from Oprah Winfrey, and she donated $1.5 million. And I have to say it slowly, because when she announced that $1.5 million, I couldn't think of the zeros. What is she talking about? Then I knew my mother and my grandmother. They were so wise, and they knew that whenever we connect who we are, we connect our personal dreams to something greater, to the greater good. God, the universe, will honor those dreams. And I remember when I buried those dreams, my mother and my grandmother would say, go to that place where you have buried your dreams and sit and reflect on your life, reflect on each of the dreams. And so I would sit there and visualize myself getting on an aeroplane to go to America. I never seen an aeroplane in my life. The only aeroplanes I knew were the war helicopters, because it was during the war. So they would come in these helicopters during the war. So I would visualize myself getting into that helicopter, finding myself a seat. My grandmother would say, close your eyes and visualize and feel the edges of those dreams, each one of them. So I would see myself flying to this place called America. See myself carrying books into the classrooms. See myself graduating my undergraduate, going to my master's. Seeing myself walking to receive a paper that says, you have done it. And so when I received that paper from Oklahoma State University, letting me know that I had been accepted for my undergraduate program. And then the day that I went to that airport, that little airport, and finding myself getting into the aeroplane, there was this feeling, this deja vu, like I've been here before. I was meant to be here because that's what I created. We are the creators of our own destiny. And here I am now rebuilding 12 schools. The schools have impacted more than 38,000 kids. And for the first time in history in my community, no child from my community had gone to university, neither their mothers or their grandmothers. And now we have girls sitting in larger numbers and going for their university education. Oh. That's the power of believing. That's the power of confronting our soul wounds and using those soul wounds to energize us for the greater good.
Thank you. That is so beautiful and so powerful. And I've experienced that as well. The power of visualization, the power of being able to see, even when you don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you've never seen what it looks like to live in a house, or if you don't know what it looks like to have the job of your dreams, or to work with people or help others, or to be healthy. You know, I think it is such a powerful thing to be able to sit and reflect. I think that is probably one of the wisest things that I've ever heard and experienced. But I love what she made you do, to sit where you buried your dreams and reflect, because that has to be so powerful.
But there are also lessons into that it's not just only visualizing, because you can visualize all you want. You have to be surrounded by mentors, the wisdom whisperers, who can encourage you. You also have to look at the opportunities that are within your community, the opportunities that you have. So, you know, and also the belief that you were meant to have a better life than you have. And those ingredients, I always say, surround yourselves with the right energy, positive people who can drive you, who can help you to achieve your own dreams and run away from toxic environments. Run away from toxic people and their dramas. Otherwise, it will discourage you from achieving your dreams. We are on a journey. We are on a journey to make life better for us, but also to make life better for others. Like the Native Americans in this country or all over the world, the indigenous people, they have taught us something. Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do it to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things are connected. Our very survival is connected to the survival of others. That's what we call Ubuntu back home. I am because we are. Since we are, therefore I am.
I don't know that I can even follow that up with. I think that's I have nothing else to say. That is beautiful. It's called Ubuntu.
Yeah,
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu. Yeah, UBUNTU. Ubuntu.
Oh,
The essence of our humanity. What makes us human beings.
yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. The final question was if you have a piece of wisdom that you can share, that you can say, if saying it right now, and that could have been it. To me, that's powerful enough to be something that you can leave people with. But if every single woman on this planet can hear your words of wisdom, what would they be?
I would go to Maya Angelou. She said something that truly resonates with me. A woman in harmony with her spirit is like a flowing river. She goes where she will without pretense. She is prepared to be herself and only herself. And I say to women, please come home to yourself.
Oh, Tara, thank you so much. I have no words to express my gratitude for your story, who you are and what you've done and what you continue to do. It is so inspiring, so impactful for so many women. I know that it's inspired me so much. And even though I don't talk to you or see you all the time, your words, I listen to your interviews and to your audio book. I listen to so much of what you've created and done. And I can't thank you enough. And what you're doing is so pivotal to our ability to continue to wake up and grow and thrive. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. Thank you for creating this platform. And as I said, when you create a platform that helps women to reclaim their voices, that's beautiful, because women, we have been silenced and we need to reclaim and own our own voices. Yeah.
Thank you. So for the people that are watching this or listening to this podcast, where can they go to connect with you? Where can they find more information?
So they can, I also provide online classes with my messages, healing from your soul wounds, reclaiming your voice, unlocking what breaks your heart. And they can also get my book, The Awakened Woman. It is one of the few books with Oprah Winfrey's forward. I was so very humbled to get that forward from Oprah Winfrey. And they can also go to tererai.org, tererai.org, to learn more about the work that I am doing, and also to become part of this collective energy that I always talk about, that women collectively, let's come together.
Yes. Oh, I love that. So all of those links will be in the show notes of this particular episode. So be sure to check those out. And also, I've done one of Tererai's workshops before, and it is so powerful. And even though this is work that I've been doing for a long time, I was still a little bit shook as to what I was finding just with the questions that you were having us answer, and the inquiry, the self-inquiry that came, and being able to write things down is so cathartic for me, and I know for a lot of women. So they're absolutely, I recommend them. I couldn't recommend them enough. So thank you so much, Tererai. You are incredible. I again am just super grateful. Thank you for everything. We love you so much. Please come back, and we look forward to sharing this with all of you that are listening. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much, Dr. Tererai Trent. What an incredible conversation. I learned so much about the batons that we pass on, but mostly how we have the power to change them. What an incredible conversation. I wish that I could have one of those every day. And thank you all for continuing to listen. We are seeing the downloads. We are getting your support on Instagram. Thank you so much. This is absolutely 100% a labor of love. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tune in next week. This podcast was produced by me, Rosie Acosta, and Aviv Rubenstein. You can find Aviv on Instagram at Rambo Calorician. See you all soon.